So with Eibishter's help, we're beginning Masechta Brachos, which is the first Masechta of Shas. It's of course the first Mishnah of Torah Shabbal Peh in general. It's a very special thing. Starting it on a day like today, which is Chav Kislev, which is Shana L'Chsidis, the day that Alter Rebbe got out of prison completely, and it's especially connected with the Takana, the enactment that Alter Rebbe said, and it's brought in Tanya, to divide Shas. Every community should divide the entire Shas among themselves. And each person takes a Masechta to finish throughout the year. So it gives you a little time. You can learn it Be'iyun and in depth. But by the end of the year, by next year this time, you should finish at least one Masechta as part of this Takana. Brachos is interesting. It starts with a Beis. The Mishnah that starts with a Mem. But Brachos is the Beis, which is similar to the way Torah begins with a Beis, which is the idea of bracha in general. Reish is bara, as explained in Chassidus, that Aleph is the Eibishter and Beis is Brachos. So starting with Masechta Brachos is not coincidental. And in general, the idea of a bracha is a connection that we have with the Eibishter, like a Mavreches Agefen, when you take the vines and you bring them back into the ground to connect it with more nutrients and so on. It's a special concept of connecting more. And bracha, of course, means bringing down, and many other things, which is very appropriate and special about Masechta Brachos. So Daf Beis. Begin with the Mishnah. Meimasa Keirin Shema Ba'arvin. From when do you begin laning Shema in the evening? According to Chassidus, this question Meimasai is not really a question. It's telling you Me'emas, which means from when you have with fear, with awe, with ema of the Eibishter. That's how you start saying Shema. It's not just a question of time. The Mishnah is telling you the attitude that we should have when we're saying Shema. Like in Perek Aleph of Tanya, which is also mentioned today, which many of us say it every day, about the idea of having Yiras Hashem. So ema of saying Shema Ba'arvis. But the question in the Mishnah is, when is the right time to say Shema? We know we have a mitzvah to say Shema at night and by day. When are you supposed to say it? When is the evening? The Mishnah says, from when the Kohanim go in or enter to eat from their teruma, ad seif hashmura rishena, until the end of the first ashmura. You have two opinions you have parts to the night, which have to do when different malachim are saying the various praises, shira, and so on. And it's either broken up in 3 or in 4. So it's either 4 hours, 3 hours, or 4 hours. But from the beginning, when Kohanim begin their time, the Gemara is going to explain more specific what we mean, from then until the end of the first Ashmura. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, the Tanakama. The Chachamim argue, and they say, Ad Chatais, you only have until midnight to say Shema, the evening Shema. Now, to clarify, we're going to have a lot of times and specifications about when Shkia is and what are minutes and what are hours and so on. We're not talking about literal hours, or literal half midnight of 12 o'clock, but we're talking about halachic times, which basically every day has 12 hours and every night has 12 hours. And depending on how much sunlight you have, you divide the hour, all the minutes of the day in 12. Sometimes an hour could be, like in the winter, an hour could be more than 60 minutes. But half of that time of the night is till when you could say Shema, according to Chachamim. Rabbi Gamliel says, in the most lenient, you have all the way until the morning to be able to say Shema and still fulfill the mitzvah of saying Shema at night. Maaseh, there was a story, and when the Mishnah says such a thing, it's really telling you what's the conclusion, what's the din. So Maaseh Rav, this is what took place. Maaseh ubo bon of Beis HaMishteh. His children, the children of Rabbi Gamliel came from a wedding. They told him, we didn't read Shema. Just to clarify that the mitzvah, from a half an hour before the time of saying Shema, you're not allowed to sit down for a meal. Unless you started the meal before, you were in the middle of eating already, then you don't have to stop in the middle for Ma'ariv. Which obviously this is what they did. They were already having a chasna, and it came time for Ma'ariv. They didn't stop, When they finished, they're asking their father, what should we do? We didn't learn Shema yet. They couldn't know Shema. Amar Lahem, he told them, if it's not Amud HaShachar yet, it's not the morning star yet, then you need to learn Krishma. It's not just that you're allowed to, of course, you still have the requirement to say Shema for the evening Shema. Not only that, not only that, anytime when Chazal tell us that a certain thing is only till midnight, you should know it's only the truth is, night mitzvahs, where Chazal give us a limit and say it's till midnight, it's only, its truth is, it's till until you have the morning star. When you have karbanis, which have to be brought during the daytime, the shechita has to be by day, and the kabbalah has to be, of the receiving of the blood has to be by day, and the smearing of it has to be by day, and so on, the sprinkling of the blood, and so on. All the parts have to be done by day, but the actual burning could take longer. How much time do you have for that? So you have the mitzvah all the way until Amud HaShachar. And any time it says you have to eat something in one day, which means you can't leave it till the morning, it's also you have the full night. If that's the case that you have till the morning, so why did Chazal tell us? Why did our sages say that it's till only till midnight? To distance a person from an avera. And this is very important when it comes to, it's not just Shema, you have more time, but when it comes to karbanis, you're not allowed to leave it over. There's a limit, there's a maximum time when you have to consume the carbon or finish with the carbon. So when you say that you have to bring it, you have till the morning, if you don't bring it after midnight, you didn't do it yet, and now it's past midnight, you have to bring it or else you're over, because it's going to be the morning and you didn't take care of your karbanis. So, Rabbi Gamliel is saying that even though the halacha is according to Chazal, and we have to go till Chatzos, but if you didn't, then you have until the morning, because they only did this as a precaution to make sure that we don't come to do an Aveda. Let's do the Rashi in the Mishnah. The head of Shimshon, Kayanim, which became Tameh. To clarify, when there's Tuma, the going to the mikvah, besides a specific exception, going to the mikvah is during the day. They go to mikvah during the day, but they're still not completely tar. They have to wait until the night. Once the sun sets, now they could have their, in this case, they could have Truma. So he went to the mikvah. Now he's waiting for it to get dark. Once it gets dark, which, as we're going to understand, what does dark mean? The beginning of Shkia or much later Shkia, but once the sun sets, now they could go and eat their Truma because they're tahir already. I just have to wait for the sun to set. Ad Seif Hashmur Arishayna, Shlish Halayla, third of the night, as the Gemara will explain. Misham ve'elech avar zman. Once you pass that first third of the night, if we divide it into three, so it's 4 hours. So in a day like in a day like today, it's, let's say the earliest time is 10 to 5. Let's just say 5 o'clock to round it off. So you have till 9 would be according to this opinion, till 9 would be the time. To be very clear, we're not going to say halacha. We're just going to understand, obviously, Mishnah and Gemara and so on. But according to this opinion, you only have one ashmira to do it. So the first set. So there's 3 times. So the night is divided in 3, and you have either first or second or the whole thing. Why is that? Because we're saying the Torah says b'shach b'chav kumecha, when you lay down and when you wake up. When is the time that people go to sleep? What's laying down mean? So they start going to sleep. Different people do different things, but generally speaking, it's the time of going to sleep is from sunset, when it gets dark outside, especially back in the day when there was no electric lights. It gets dark, a person gets ready to go to sleep. So from that time, it's a span, the first third of the night, that's the time to go to sleep. And that's the time when you fulfill the mitzvah of saying Shema, when you're lying down. Suzman Shchiva is not called anymore the time of laying down. It's not called B'shachbecha, which the Torah says when you lie down, you say Shema. Also now it's not the time of Shchiva. And before this, you're also not. It's also not the time of lying down. You say Shema in the afternoon. That's not what Torah means. That you are you're lying down to go to sleep. Why do we lay in Shema by Ma'ariv and Shol? We're not going to sleep now. There's another inyan that you should be in the davening among Divrei Torah, which is the entire from when it gets dark. From laying the first section of Shema before he goes to sleep, literally before he goes to sleep, he's Yetza. So there's different opinions in halacha of what it means. What's the chayv of Shema? Is it Shema Baruch Shem, Shema B'Hafta? Is it all three sections? All the way to the Alter Rebbe of what the requirement of saying Shema to be Yetza. But it has to be done at night. And we still have a concept, besides in Ma'ariv, before you go to sleep, you also say Shema. The opinion that says, the Gamliel, that you could wait until the morning, it's because, according to this opinion, the whole night is a time of going to sleep. You know, why limit it to the first Ashmeda, the first section, let's say the first third of the night? People go to sleep later. Nighttime is sleeping time. It's bringing the two parts, the fats of the animal, and the ivarim, which would be by a carbon oila, when you bring the entire carbon. So the shchita was done during the daytime. The zrika, the sprinkling of the blood, was done during the daytime. The burning of it could be longer if they didn't manage. Mitzvah on lahalis kol alayla. You have a mitzvah to bring them on the mizbeach, on the altar, a whole night, and you're not. It's not puzzle. You didn't invalidate it as long as you brought it before it got morning. One is the limbs of the animal, which by a carbon oila, you bring the whole carbon. Most carbonates, you're not bringing the limbs onto the kayin, to the people, to the owner of the carbon. But yeah. Don't leave it overnight. The fat is all karbanis, even if the entire carbon is not being consumed or being offered, but still the fat has to be burnt on the mizbeach. And all the other karbanis that you have only one day to consume them. Okay, the person did an avera by mistake, he's bringing a carbon chatas, or he did it on purpose, it's asham, or it's yomim tevim, tzukish, etc. You're bringing various different karbanis. Many of them are restricted. You have to take care of it that day. What's the day? It's the day and the night that follows it until the morning. But you find that there is a restriction according to Chachamim. The opinion says you only have till the morning. You only have till midnight. That's a precaution to help us make sure that we don't forget, and by mistake the night will pass. It's the time of their eating. He brings them. Because if he doesn't, then it's going to be considered to be leftovers, which is forbidden. Like it says right by the carbon taida, when a person brings off all the karbanis from a carbon taida. If so, why by krishma and by eating of kachim, Chazal tell us you have only till midnight. Why do they take away time and make us finish it earlier? To distance a person from transgression. And they said, don't eat it before the time, in order that before the real deadline, they said they prohibited eating it, in order that you shouldn't end up waiting and it'll be last minute and you didn't finish eating it and you ended up transgressing. He's chayiv karis, because the chiyuv, the consequence of not eating it on time is kares, which is an extreme being cut off and so on. A person shouldn't say, when it comes to Shema, it's already 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I have plenty of time, I'll daven Ma'ariv later, I'll say Shema later, and before he knows it, Yalam and Shachav Avrle Azman. He got involved, busy, or he fell asleep, or whatever it was. Keeps on pushing it off. When he realizes the time is almost up because it's only till midnight, if he did end up forgetting or he got involved in something else, he does really have more time. The whole idea of the concept of bringing karbanis, the yivarim and the fats, it's kosher the whole night. But the reason why he brought it here, and Rashi brings that in Masechta Megillah we also say a similar thing, that mitzvahs that are at night you have a whole night to bring them. The Gemara is going to explain why we're bringing karbanis here. We're talking about Krishma and how they're different and so on. But where we're holding now is we have three opinions of when is the appropriate time to say Shema, from when the Koyanim start to eat Truma, meaning they're now tahir after being tameh. There's certain cases of impurities. A Kohen, for example, touched the sheretz, an insect, and he's tameh just for one day. So he goes to the mikvah, but he has to wait till the night. From that night, from sunset, that's the time they could eat Truma. That's opinion number one, Rabbi Eliezer, when you have the appropriate time to say Shema. The Chazal say only till Chatzais, and Megamliel says that really you have till the morning. It's just Chachamim, which we have to stick to, but Chachamim only have a precaution that you shouldn't put it. What's this Tana talking about? In other words, you just landed here, you started, what's the time of saying Shema? Who said you have to say Shema? What's the context here? What else is going on here? What are we talking about that we're saying from when? What's the question? Visu, and also, Ma'ishna detoni ba'arvis bereisha. Listening to Shachas bereisha. Ma'ishna detoni ba'arvis bereisha. Listening to Shachas bereisha. Why are you starting first with the evening, and then you should start first with the morning? In other words, you're saying, when is the time to say Shema? So at night, you say Shema from when it's basically sunset until whatever time it is, and then you're going to get in and tell me what to do in the morning. Start from the morning. Look in the Siddur. The Siddur starts from Maidani. We start with the morning. And then we go to the night. Karbanis is the morning. We go to the night. Why is he telling you about Maidiv starting from the night before and then the morning? Yes, he's going to answer he's going to give us two answers. And that's one of them, yeah. Sorry. And for the Gemara Krokoi, he's going based on the pasuk. Torah says, when it talks about saying Shema, Torah tells us when you lie down to go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, when you get up in the morning. So Torah starts off with the evening of saying Shema. So the Mishnah is using the same concept. Torah Shabbat Peh is going Akroi on Psukim. And the pasuk says B'shach l'cha first, so we're also saying the evening first. And if you want, I'll give you another answer. In general, when the Gemara gives us two answers, it's because the first one is not strong enough, or there's a question on it, or we should mention Tanya ki Yehuda va'id likra. It's an additional answer. In other words, it's secondary. But in this case, the Bayesema is a stronger one. Yalef Ibriyase Shel Elam. He's learning it from the creation of the world. When the Eibusha created the world, it says, there was evening and there was morning. So in a sense, the day starts from the night. First goes night, then goes morning. In fact, the Gemara, if so Ihachi, Seifa, the Getane Bashachar, listen to Arvis Bereisha. We're going to get to the Seifa, which is later, and the Mishnah is talking about the details of the brachos of Shema, which brachos you say and how you say them, and so on. It tells you first about the brachos that you say in the morning, and then the brachos that you say at night. Make up your mind. If you're talking, you just explain two reasons why we start. The Mishnah begins with the evening Shema and then the morning, so be consistent. The Gemara Tana Pasach ba'arvis v'halatani b'shachris. Tana began with the evening, like the pasuk is, and like creation of the world was. It starts with the night, and then he gets to the morning. Now you got to the morning, and now you're telling us other details about the morning, which is the brachos of Shema and how it's done. And afterwards, then you get to the explaining what happens at night, the brachas that are said before Shema in the evening time. I'm going to stop here for Ma'ariv, and tomorrow we'll catch up the Rashis and continue. Thanks for those that are watching online. You could ask questions or put in the comments, in the chat, share, subscribe. Have a good evening. We're going to say Shema.